wrongly. We will able to troubleshoot correctly once we understood the architecture of the database. So generally we can say flow of the database, right? So before understanding the Oracle architecture, let's focus on the let's learn some things about the general computing. So basically what general computing means, what is the computer architecture? Can anyone explain? Can anyone tell the components of the computer? So let me share my screen. Okay. I'll go with the point. Okay. Right. Now, can anyone tell me what is the general architecture of the computer? I mean, what are the components that can be included?
Like you have motherboard,
Okay.
the chipset, like the chip for the
Okay.
motherboard, the
Perfect.
RAM and ROM, and the hard disk
Hard disk
and
So
GPU.
CPU. Perfect. Then
Monitor and keyboards and mouse.
The
these are
peripheral.
the external components,
External.
right? Yeah. Okay. So as you said, the main thing is hard disk. So hard disk is used for
Storage some.
right.
Yes.
So we have it's a first we are that's why I always prefer to explain this on board. There is a text editor.
Do one thing on Zoom application itself, you can have the whiteboard.
Whiteboard I have, but I think you cannot able to. Would you able to see there? Okay, I got it. So general computing architecture we are going through. Okay. So as you said, what is the primary component of this? Storage, right?
Yes, sir.
Hard disk. Yeah.
Storage. We call it as a storage. So in universal language, we call it as a storage. So it's a storage. Now we will be having the what and all things then?
Motherboard.
Basically, it's a CPU, right?
Yes.
CPU. Then what is a one primary component is there to deal with all the things?
Motherboard.
Sorry? Can someone go on the mute if someone is not talking? Okay. Sivanak, I mean, you can also go to the mute. If you have any doubt, just ping me or open up your mic. Okay. So the main component, one more main component is called memory, right? Basically, everything deals with memory. So these are the three main components of the computer, right? So can anyone tell me the differences between all these three components? Just some wild guess.
CPU, we call it as a whole, like the whole, the infra.
Brain of the computer.
It-
Okay.
CPU consists of three parts.
Okay.
AL unit, memory unit, and control unit.
Memory and
Control unit.
control.
Doing the
I
process.
don't know who is speaking, but your voice is too disturbing. So you are telling correctly, but your voice is too disturbing. You have the noise, background noise. Okay. So basically, storage is a permanent. Basically, storage is a permanent component, right? When you restart your computer or your laptop or your mobile, whatever, your storage remains the same. Whatever you have the things in your storage or hard disk, that remains the same, right? So then what is the memory? Can anyone tell? It's a temporary. It's a temporary. It's a temporary component. And it's flushed out when you restart the computer. You have the RAM, or you have the temporary cache, or you have some kind of cache memory. All this memory would be flushed out once you restart the computer or your mobile, right? So when someone says my app is doesn't working, someone will guide you, someone will assist you to clear the all cache memories, right? Since it's a temporary component. Okay. Then what do you mean by the CPU? So how the CPU works between memory and storage? So anyone, okay, anyone who just wants to read the data from storage, they cannot directly invoke the storage. They have to always fetch the storage from this storage component to memory. Then the memory itself, people will get the data. So from the memory itself, people will get the data. So which one is the doing help to get the data from storage to memory? Are the background process, right? There are some background process. CPU contains the background process. Now, with the help of background process, with the help of this background process, it will fetch the data from storage to memory. And if I have the user here, if I have a user will fetch the data from memory only. So user cannot directly access the storage. He can always fetch the data from memory. So who is bringing the details from storage to memory? Is a background process. You understood basic architecture of computing, right?
Yes, sir.
So it's a very clear, right? It's a just kind of 4 components. We have storage, memory, and CPU, and we have so-called the users. We'll get the data from storage to users with the help of memory and background process. Now, can anyone tell me fetching the data from storage is faster or fetching the data from memory is faster? As a just wild guess. So using this architecture, can anyone tell me fetching the data from storage is faster or fetching the data from memory is faster? fetching the data from memory is faster, because once the request made, right, once if the data come from storage, it will store temporarily here. So again, if the user made the same request, it won't go to the storage. It will directly give the records from memory, right? So fetching the data from memory is a bit faster than fetching the data from storage. You just copy this line. So we'll discuss about it later in the Oracle architecture. So this is the things about the basic computing architecture. Similarly, if we go through the Oracle architecture, let me open the new pane, or let me erase these things. So here we will see the Oracle architecture. So in Oracle architecture, we will be having the client, who is nothing but users. So for the storage component, we have the storage. Storage is nothing but where actual data locates. Storage, in other words, we call it as a database itself. All physical files. Now we have to deal with memory and CPU. Then we will be having one memory structure. So what and all things in memory structures will be having is SGA and PGA. SGA is called System Global Area. Plus PGA. What is PGA stands for? Process Global Area or Program Global Area. Process Global Area. So basically it stands for the both these both we can refer as a memory. This both we can refer as a memory. Right? Then coming to the CPU part, we have the background process in the Oracle database. We have the background processes in Oracle database. It's called, there are some kind of SMON, DMON, checkpoint, etc. etc. SMON stands for system monitor, and then PMON. PMON stands for process monitor, and CKPT. CKPT stands for checkpoint. So whenever user requests the data, it will go to the memory, then it will fetch the data from storage with the help of background process. Then it will return to the, it will read to, it will write to the memory. Then the data will be returned to the users. This is how general, very basic general understanding of Oracle architecture. So any doubts or any questions here? Are you guys clear with this?
Yeah. Can you tell what is SMON, PMON, CKPT?
Yeah, I'll go further on it. I'm just telling the
Yeah.
basic understanding of the Oracle,
Okay.
which refers to basic computing architecture. Okay. Now, what is this part is called? What is the combination of memory and background process is called instance. Okay. We call this part is the instance. Instance is the memory and memory structures. Combination of memory structures and background process. A combination of memory structure and background process is called the instance. So the storage itself is called the database. This is the database. Clear? Okay. Now can anyone tell the what is a definition of the database? Can anyone tell the what is the definition of the database?
It's a set of data like where you store.
Yeah, we're used to. But if I want to ask about the architecture methodology, architecture words, it's a basically combination of instance and storage.
Okay.
Right. So that is what, right, we are seeing here. This is a whole Oracle architecture. When I say it's whole Oracle architecture, what and all things we have? We have just instance and storage. That's all, right? So instance will include the some memory structures and background process. The storage will include the physical files and everything, right? So the definition of database we can define as a combination of instance and storage. Storage is nothing but database itself. This is the basic understanding of Oracle architecture and when we refer to the computing architecture. Now let's see how real Oracle architecture will be having the components. Okay. Is everyone able to see my screen here?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now we have the users. We have the users. So they will send or create a request to the database that they want the data. So it will create one server process. It will create one server process which will be having the user request. Okay. So server process will communicate with the instance, and the instance will communicate with the data files or data. Then it will bring back the data to the users. This is our basic understanding of this. Now, we'll have the deep dive into this. So, as I said, what do you mean by PGA? It's a process program global area, right? So whenever the user process make a request, one individual PGA will be allocated to that particular user. One individual PGA. But when they have made a request, the SGA remains constant. Each database will have the only one SGA. But PGA is not like that. Whenever you made a request, the client will be having their own PGAs. So PGAs belongs to the users and SGAs belongs to the database. Since I have the one database in my server, I'll be having the only one SGA. But there is a possibility of connecting to the database multiple users. Suppose I have a production database, I can connect to the database. Mohan can connect to the database. Some user 1, user 2, user 3. Lot of people can connect to the database. So each and every people will have their own PGA, process global area. But SGA remains at the same. SGA will be having the only one SGA. Okay. Now let's see what is the instance. What is the instance? Instance is a combination of, as I said, memory, structure, and background process. Instance is a combination of memory, structure, and background process. So what kind of things we will be having in memory? So basically in our mobile or laptops. So can anyone tell me that some common memories? Some common memories.
Cache memory.
Cache memory. Temporary memory. Right? So when you go to the settings and the apps, clear the cache, something would be there. So that's all the memories, temporary memories. These are. Similarly, we will be having in the database, there are so many memories are called shared pool, Java pool, stream pool, large pool, buffer cache, redo log buffer. So we'll be having some more things. It's just for highlight. These are the highlighting memories. Shared pool, Java pool, stream pool, large pool, database buffer cache, redo log buffer. I'll be explaining the components individually later, but these are the memories that we will be having in our database. Okay. Then what are the background process? What is the use of it? Can anyone tell me? We already came through it.
It's help us to
Retrieve the data. It's used
like
to communicate the
fetch.
data.
Yeah, communicate.
Right? It's communicate the data. So we have some background process in the database called SMON, system monitor, PMON, process monitor, DB writer, log writer, checkpoint, archivers, something like this. Okay. So basically now let's start the some basic understanding. Okay. Let's start with some basic understanding. Now we'll go one by one. We'll go one by one. What SMONs do, what PMONs do, what DB writer do, what log writer do. Okay, let's come to the SMON. SMON stands for the system monitor. Okay, system monitor. When I say the system monitors, it will be having the responsibility to recover the data whenever the instance is crashed. When I say instance, what is the instance?
Like memory, the whole,
Is-
the whole.
It is a
whole.
combination of memory structures and background process.
Right. Whenever suppose some crash functionality happens, suppose power gone, okay, uninteractively the database was shut down, the server crashed. So those and all we can call it as a crash, instance crash. We haven't shut down it properly, right? Suppose if you press the power button for a long time, the laptop will be shutting down, right? Or else the batteries got over in your laptop, or else while you are using the desktop, if the power gone, the system will shut down abnormally, right? Whenever you're trying to bring it up, it will take some time, isn't it? In your real time. Similarly, if any abnormal shutdown happening, or if any abnormal things are happened, that we'll call as an instance crash. So in those situations, SMON will be responsible to recover the all data. It is responsible to bring back the state of all other memories, other process to the stable. And PMON stands for process monitor. So it will monitor all the background process. So what and all related for the database. If anything goes down, it will try to bring up its own. It will try to bring up its own. If not, it will shut down the database. PMON will be monitoring the all other background process. If something goes down, it will try to bring up it. Then coming to the DBWN. What is the DBWN? It's a stands for database writer. N stands for number. We can have the N number of data writers. We can have the N number of data writers. What is this task? I mean, what work it will do? So whenever the user inserts the data, first it will store into the database buffer cache, which is in memory component. Then it will store to the database. Basically, it's a data file. So it will be mediator from the database buffer cache and data files. So it will write the data from database buffer cache to the database. Who is responsible to write the data from data buffer cache to database?
DBWN.
DB writer. We read it as a DB writer. Then
Yeah.
log writer. What is the log writer? So the work of this is whenever the user is having the committed data or uncommitted data, whatever, they will store along with the database buffer cache to the read log buffer. Along with this, the information will be also stored in the read log buffer, and it will be writing to the online read logs with the help of log writer. With the help of log writer. Log writer is the background process which will read the data from read log buffer 2 and load it to the online read logs. Now I'll tell you what is the purpose of this thing, everything going forward. You just understand the purpose of the background processes here. Okay. Then we have one more called archivers. What is this archivers? We have some external files called in database archive log files. So basically, what do you mean by archive log files is it's a backup of online read log files. It's a backup of online read log files. So archive files would be generating by using the background process called archiver, ARCN. ARCN. These are the main workflow of the database. Okay. Then what is a checkpoint? Whenever the changes happens to the database, it will update one checkpoint. Where it will update? It will update in control files, data files. It will update in control files and data files. This is the basic structure of the architecture. Now later let's see the what is PGA, what is a PGA stands for, what is SG and everything. Before that, we'll go to the okay. So when I say the server, can anyone define the server here? In general understanding words. Server is nothing but kind of collection of storage and memory, right? Storage, memory, CPU. Basically, it's a computer. When I say server, it's a collection of storage, memory, and CPUs, right? So when I say database server, where our database has installed, we called that particular server is called database server. Where our database is installed and located, that particular server we call as a database server. So basically, again, all the IT things based on the three-layer architecture. Can anyone say what is a three-layer architecture means? I think everyone has these in their in their studies. We have the three-layer architecture. We have the three-layer architecture. Can anyone tell?
Input, process, output.
So basically, three-layer architecture means, so here we will be having the client. Okay. That's why. I'll use the paint itself. So we have three-layer architecture. So one who needs the information is called the client. Okay. It's a client architecture. Client is nothing but our desktops or laptops or mobiles. Okay, from where we are fetching the data is a device where we are requesting the data. Where we are requesting the data is called the client architecture. But through which we can able to request. Through which we can able to request. Suppose I need some data. Okay. Suppose I need data from Wikipedia. Okay. How can you fetch the data from Wikipedia?
You go, you browse over there and you just copy it.
And everything this can be done using the help of browser, right? What is a browser? It's an application, right?
Yeah.
It's an application. So basically it is acting as a mediator between you and actual database. So we refer as second tier is called either mid tier or application tier. Mid tier or application tier. So from where you are getting the data? So now you have the desktop or laptop or mobile. Now you are requested some information through application or mid-tier or your browsers, whatever it is. Now from where it will get the data? It will get the data from database, that particular database. Understood here?
Yeah.
The client will communicate with the middle tier. The middle tier will communicate with the database and it will fetch the data. Then it will return to the database to the application. It will return the data to application. Then it will give the details to the client. This is how basic entire IT infrastructure. When I say IT information technology structure, everything depends upon this. Everything depends upon this. The people who are supporting middle tier or application or the developers are involved in this mid tier, so they will develop some application, they will they will develop some mid tier components and everything. The people who are working in the database, they deal with the data and they support it. So basically we belongs to which component? Database component. So where are we? Wait a sec. I was explaining about the database server. Database server, when I say database server, it's a basically the server where our database has installed. Okay. So this is some basic flow of the requesting or getting the data. So client is there. We already know the client tier. So client will request the data to the database through the help of application. So that we called as a client process. It will connect to the database. Okay, it will connect to the database with the help of server process. What is a server process? It will create on the database server. Then it will access the data from the database and it will load to the server process and the details will be given to the client. So I have written this here orally, so you can go through it and you can able to understand it. Okay, I'll send a document of this after this class, so please go through it.
Okay.
If you have any doubts, just ping me in the WhatsApp or you can call me at any time. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Just make a doubts of it. We can discuss in the next classes as well. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Then I was talking about the database server, right? Database server. So see, if you see here, it's a combination of SGA and PGA and some background process, and it maintains the database. This is called program global area. SGA is called system global area. Okay. So, and then if we go further, okay, let's see each and every component of SGA and PGA later, tomorrow. Okay, maybe I can say tomorrow. Now you will have the basic understanding of these things. SGA and PGA. What is a database server? Any doubts on this? Any questions in this? Anyone?
No,
So shall we stop or shall I go ahead with the explaining of SGA?
you can.
Okay. Okay. Then we'll start the SGA. Okay. So I think I've deleted that, right? Oh. So when I say SGA, we have a lot of components here like Java pool, shared pool, stream pool, large pool, database buffer cache, redo log buffer cache, right? So I'll explain the each and everything here. Shared pool, flashback buffer, database buffer cache, redo log buffer, large pool, stream pool, Java pool, fixed SGA. Okay. So basically SGA stands for System Global Area that everyone knows now. It contains the data and control information. One Oracle database instance is needed. Okay. So when I say the information, that information might be fetched from the database, or that information might be fetched from the users. So it contains the information about the database. Now, when I talk about the shared pool, it will be having the two components. Okay, one is like library cache, another one is buffer cache. Okay. When I say the library cache, suppose I have a request, I made a request called select star from employee table. Okay. I'm requesting the data from employee table to the database for the first time. So what it will do, first it will check in library cache whether the query is already fetched or requested in past. If not, it will make a new request to the database and it will fetch the data from the database and it will store that result in shared pool and it will give the result to the user. Now, what is the purpose of storing the particular results in the shared pool? Can anyone tell what is the advantage of it? Storing the result in shared pool?
Like anyone can get that. Anyone can access the query.
No, I mean, to think basically, suppose I made a request select star from employee table for the first time, and I come 2 days after, and again I'm making the same request to the database. Okay, same request, same query I'm running against the database.
Instead of creating new one, like it fetches.
Now the results it will directly come from the memory itself. It won't communicate with the database. Our result and our first time query. Right? That's the use of shared pool. That's the use of shared pool. So basically it will have the information of data dictionary. And it will involve in almost every operation that occurs in the database. Suppose whenever you runs the one query, first it will check whether the data is present in shared pool or not. If not, then it will go communicate with the database and fetch the details. Now, flashback buffer. So what is mean by flashback? Can anyone tell? Flashback is a process of going back to the state as we want, right? Going back to the state as we want. So this process we called it as a recovery. So going back is called a recovery. Okay. So whenever, if we want to bring back our database, some past data, past date or past time, the flashback buffer will be useful. But again, it's an optional component of the SGA. It's not a compulsory component of SGA. Flashback buffer is a optional component of the SGA. Now let's talk about the database buffer cache. What do you mean by database buffer cache? So whenever I'm inserting the data or modifying the data, So the initial data, the initial records will be stored in database buffer cache. The initial records, the initial information, the stored in database buffer cache. When suppose I'm inserting some 10 or 20 rows or 100 to million rows to the table called employee in the database, I'm writing a query, insert into employee something. Those particular results first it will store in database buffer. From here itself, it will store to the database with the help of I've just told the 5-10 minutes back, with the help of database writer. It will load the data from database buffer cache to the data files with the help of database writer. So basically, it will store the data. It will store the data of modifications or insertions or anything. Now, what is a redo log buffer? What is a redo log buffer? Can anyone guess? So, yeah, tell me.
Like it's a online like backup.
Right. Redo logs we always use for the recovery purpose. I mean, just kind of complete recovery purpose. Suppose the data won't be stored to the database until the database writer completes the data from buffer cache to database, right?
Yeah.
It will be just in cache. The whatever records we are inserting to the database, it won't be saved to the database until DB writer has invoked and writes the data from data buffer to data files. Isn't it? You are clear on this, right? Suppose at the time of when my data presents in this buffer cache, my instance got down. My instance has crashed. Now I want a recovery. How can I do the recovery? The same data, the whatever data presents in this, it will be present in online redo log buffer. And these redo log buffer can be applied in the process of recovery.
Okay.
In the process of recovery, whenever my instance crashes down, which background process to take care of the recovery? Which background process? S1, right? I told.
S1.
S1, system monitor. So system monitor will invoke the redo log buffer, will communicate with the redo log buffer. Is there any data that I has to apply to the database? It will ask the redo log buffer. If it is empty, then there is a no recovery will be performed. If has some data that might be committed data or uncommitted data, everything will be loaded here, right? Everything will be stored here for temporary purpose. So these data will be applied to the database. That's a use of redo log file, redo log buffer. It has the data. Then these data will be written to the online redo log files with the help of log writer. You just remember, it will be having the committed or uncommitted data. It will write it will load these data to online redo log files with the help of log writer.
Okay.
And we have something called large pool, okay, where the sorting operations, merging operations. Suppose I have some union keyword in my SQL query, or I have sorting operation in my SQL query. So there is something operations I need to do on the SQL query so that I will have the proper output. Those are all arrangements will be made in large pool area. Those all arrangements will be made in large pool area. So in memory area, again, these are kind of optional things. You just go through these, you will be able to understand it further. Okay, I'll send it in. I'll make a proper arrangements and I'll send it in this one PDF format. Okay.
Okay.
So now you understood the what is a SGA, what is the components of it, right?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Shall we quickly recall today's call what we have done?
Okay.
Okay. What is the database called in terms of architecture?
Combination of instance plus storage.
Right. What do you mean by instance?
Instance is also
Memory,
having memory structures and background process.
background process.
It's a combination of memory structures and background
And
process.
background process.
So what are the different type of memory structures we have?
One is SGA, another one is PGA.
PGA.
System
Wow.
global area, process global area.
Process.
Perfect. So when I ask for the components of SGA, what and all the things we have?
SGA, we are having
Shared pool,
Shared pool, stream pool.
database, power cache.
our cache, radiographer, large pool.
Right. These and all the components of SGA. So we haven't go to the PGA yet. So what are some kind of background process we have?
SMON, PMON, CKPT, and database writer and log writer, archive, like archive writer.
Perfect. Perfect. So what a DB writer will do?
It communicates with database, like it helps us to retrieve, connect to database.
No, basically it won't connect to the database. It writes the data from database buffer to data files.
Yeah. Okay.
Basically, it writes the data from DB buffer cache to data files. So what is the process of log writer? What is the purpose of log writer?
Log writer for recovering data.
No.
Sorry.
From it process
Of data.
No, it process with red logo buffer cache, redo logo.
It writes the data from redo log buffer to the online redo log files. It writes the data from redo log buffer to the online redo log files. So what are the archive files?
It's backup of online redo.
Backup of online redo log files. What SMON will do? SMON stands for
System monitor. It will communicate with redo log files.
no.
Like it helps us to read whatever the data retrieve, like backup the data.
It will help us to recover the instance in case of instance crash happened. The name itself is telling, right? System monitor. So what do you mean by PMON?
PMON monitors all the background
Process monitor.
So these and all things we have covered today. So tomorrow we'll go through the what is a PGA. It's just very simple than SGA, what we have learned. So what is this PGA and basic SQL flow, how it goes and all.
Yes, sir.
And the remaining types of remaining background process, what are the things they do. Then we'll talk about the shared pool because it's some very important interview component. Okay. On these based, a lot of interview will be asking. So this will go in next classes.
Yes, sir.
If you fully concentrate and able to read the architecture and understand this completely, now you will be ready to clear the data DBA interview 50%, because 50% of the interviews will be based on this architecture only. What SMAN will do, what PMAN will do, these types of questions.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Oh, we'll do it tomorrow. We'll read further tomorrow.
Okay,
Sir, can you please share that the PDF?
Yeah, I'll share it. I'll share it in the WhatsApp. Okay. Any questions? Okay, guys. I'll be logging off. Have a good day. Bye.
Thank you.
Mhm.